Hi guys, I'm Charlotte, and I want to tell you about the biggest epic fail that ever happened to me when I was trying to make a dream of mine come true. I've always lived on my family's dude ranch in a small town, just like my parents and their parents. Basically, I'm from a long line of people who have lived in this small town for over 8 generations. It's not just a way of life, but a family business. We grow livestock on the farm here, our local tree gardens are full of seasonal fruits, and our market gardens are bursting with plenty of vegetables and salads. I know every farmer by name, and I can distinguish any of our local animals just by the sound they make. I know virtually every inch of the landscape here, starting with the calm rush of the river to the valley full of grasses and pastures, and even the foxberry bush that grows along a local fence. And guess what? I am so tired of it. In fact, everything here goes along a path that has been charted for centuries. We always follow the traditions of our ancestors, either in terms of business practices or special occasions. There's just no spontaneity. The greatest rebel in our family is my Aunt Jane, who moved to the city to study at college and never came back. Oh, to me, her life is amazing. Adventures, meeting interesting people, dating handsome men, a modern apartment, and everything she wants. She is establishing her career at a famous newspaper. And for me, so far, she is the most successful representative of our family. But I am pretty alone in thinking that way. No one in the family is actually proud of her. They think she's wasting her life by not having settled here in town, not having married a farmer, and not contributing to the family business. But I admire my aunt. She knows about my sincere wish to live in the city. She emails me frequently and sends me some stylish clothes and cosmetics, which I actually can't even use here. So I just store everything in my closet, hoping that someday I'll have a reason to dress up. We had a summer project for school to do at home. It was to write about the journey of a lifetime. Since I've been nowhere except my small town, I asked my mom for permission to visit my Aunt Jane in the city. After a few days of begging, my mom surrendered. And after a week, I was drinking coffee in my aunt's apartment, looking at the busy city through her big window. This is how my 4-week journey began. I must say, the city turned out to be different from how I used to imagine it in my dreams. Everyone seemed to be in a rush here. Even the moms with babies were not as calm and peaceful as the busiest farmer back in my small town was. Endless traffic, numerous cafes and restaurants, crowds of people on the city streets. Everything seemed to be one single organism that never slept. My everyday natural landscape had turned into a stone and glass jungle, and it was impossible to predict any turn of events that were going to happen there. My aunt was pretty busy at work, so for me, staring out the big window or watching 300-plus TV channels was an everyday scenario. I was not supposed to leave the apartment alone. And every evening, Aunt Jane took me out to dinner at a new place, or we would go to one of her social engagements together. We would walk down the city streets on the weekends. We visited museums a couple of times, and it was not that bad actually. But at some point, I realized how much I missed my town and the ranch. I guess this is what they call being homesick. I missed my mockingbird that sang every night in front of my window, and the sound of the river, which I always heard right before falling asleep, and all the farm animal noises. I actually dreamt about it every night, and then something happened that made me want to go back home before the journey was officially over. There was another high-rise apartment building in front of ours. One day, when I was, as usual, staring at the street through the window, I noticed that someone was waving at me. At first, I felt strange about it and moved away from the window, but the next day the same situation happened again. This time I was curious about the person waving at me. He turned out to be a handsome guy who I apparently had never met before. The other day I was almost waiting for him in front of my window. And guess what? He waved again, and I waved back at him. Oh God, I felt like I was about to fall for him. A couple of times I saw him on the street. He was tall with dark hair and reminded me of a Hollywood movie star. Since then, I actually stopped dreaming about being on the ranch and started dreaming about him. And these dreams were the most romantic ones I've ever had. A couple of days later, me and my aunt went for a walk. When we got into the elevator to go downstairs, I saw him. The guy from my romantic dreams was already here, also going downstairs. My face turned red all at once, right when Aunt Jane greeted him and introduced me. He looked at me weird and said that he's already noticed me waving at him when he was waving at his girlfriend, who lived the next floor up from our apartment. I've never felt that embarrassed before. I returned home to the ranch. Here in my small town, everything is consistent, and an embarrassing situation like this would hardly ever happen. And I've decided to stay here, at least until the moment I stop being such a hopeless romantic.